A cast iron tool sits on a dusty general store counter in 1930, 10 inches of worn metal with a wooden handle. Its curved, beak-like point suggests purpose, but few people today recognize what it actually does. The other end spreads into a small flat plate with 2 or 3 short teeth cut into its edge. There are no moving parts. It does not fold. It does not adjust. It simply sits there, solid and purposeful, looking like something between a cobbler's awl and a garden claw. The storekeeper knew exactly what it was for. The farmer who walked in knew exactly what it was for. But pick one up today, turn it over in your hands, and most people have absolutely no idea. It was mass-produced. It was cheap. It's sold by the thousands in hardware bins and dry goods stores from Georgia to Oregon. And then, somewhere between the war years and the television age, it simply vanished from common knowledge. Take a good look. Do you know what this was for? Most people have no idea. Keep watching, because by the end of this, you just might. That strange little tool is a leather punch and strap cutter, or more precisely, a combination punch and skiver used by ordinary farm families for repairing harness leather at home. In 1930, almost every working farm still kept horses or mules for field work, and harness leather cracked, split, and wore through constantly. Professional saddlers charged money and lived miles away in town. So the farmer's wife or the farmer himself would pull out this odd little tool, use the curved beak to punch a new hole in a cracked bridle strap, and use the toothed end to skive, to thin, the edge of a broken piece so it could overlap and be sewn back together without a lump. It was clever in the way that humble things are clever. One tool, 2 jobs, no wasted motion. When trucks replaced draft animals on American farms through the 1940s and 1950s, harness leather stopped needing repair at all, and this tool stopped needing to exist. Now, from leather to wood, and from the farm to the cooperage. If you ever visited an old barrel maker, a cooper, you would have found his shop smelling of damp oak and wood shavings, and hanging on his wall you might have spotted what looks, at first glance, like a very strange drawing compass. 2 long iron legs, hinged at the top, but instead of a sharp point on one leg and a pencil holder on the other, both legs end in flat, curved blades. This is a cooper's inside calipers, sometimes called a Howell gauge when fitted with its scribing attachment, and it was used to measure the inside diameter of a barrel being assembled so that the crows, the groove cut near each end of the stave to hold the barrel head, could be cut to exactly the right width. A cooper working by feel alone might have a barrel head that leaked or one that would not seat at all. These calipers gave him certainty. The feel of the tool spreading slightly as you pressed it into a half-finished barrel, then reading the spread against a marked rod. That was precision without a single number printed anywhere. Coopering as a widespread trade collapsed when metal drums and cardboard containers took over through the mid-20th century, and the Howell gauge became a curiosity almost overnight. Some forgotten tools come from trades most people today have never even heard of. The wheelwright, the man who made and repaired wooden wagon wheels, used a tool called a spoke dog. It looks almost like a bent crowbar with a pair of notched hooks at one end. When a wheel was being assembled, the spokes had to be driven into the hub mortises with tremendous force, all of them equally deep and equally spaced, while simultaneously the iron tire was being fitted around the outside. The spoke dog let one man lever and hold a spoke in precise position while another drove it home with a mallet. Without it, you needed 3 hands or 3 men. With it, 2 could do the job cleanly. There is something deeply satisfying about that kind of tool, something born not from a catalog but from a real problem in a real shop on a real afternoon when a man thought, there has to be a better way to hold this thing. Wagon wheels gave way to rubber tires and steel wheels, and spoke dogs ended up in barn lofts, where most of them still sit today, crusted with old grease, waiting to be found. Here is a moment to pause and ask, did your grandfather have something like this in his shed? Some odd, heavy thing you could never figure out, hanging on a nail or sitting in a coffee can of bolts? Tell me about it in the comments below. Moving from the wheelwright's barn to the kitchen, because not every forgotten tool was a man's tool. The sad iron lifter, sometimes called a gooseneck lifter or simply an iron holder, is a small device that looks like a miniature wrought iron hook with a trigger mechanism built into the handle. In the era before electric irons, women ironed clothes with heavy cast iron wedges, called sad irons, from the old word meaning solid and heavy, that had to be heated on a wood or coal stove. The problem was that the iron got as hot as the stove itself. The wooden handle that screwed on and off was the solution, and the sad iron lifter was the tool you used to move the iron from stove to ironing board without burning yourself on the heated metal body. You hooked the lifter's claw into a slot on the iron, squeezed the trigger, and carried it safely. It weighed almost nothing, cost almost nothing, and was absolutely indispensable in every household that ironed clothes, which was every household. When electric irons with permanently cool handles arrived and became affordable in the 1930s, the sad iron lifter lost its entire reason to exist in a single generation. From the kitchen to the smokehouse, there is another tool worth knowing. A meat hook gambrel, not to be confused with the gambrel roof of a barn, is a heavy, spreading iron bar, sometimes called a spreader bar or carcass hanger, used to hang a dressed hog or steer by the hind legs in a smokehouse or butcher's cold room. The bar had notched or pointed ends that fit behind the tendons of the animal's legs, spreading them wide to allow air to circulate and smoke to penetrate evenly. Every farm family that raised their own hogs in the South and Midwest knew this tool by sight and by feel. It was passed down. It was kept oiled. It had real weight to it. The weight of self-sufficiency, of knowing that what your family would eat all winter depended on doing this right. Commercial meat processing plants centralized this work through the post-war decades, and the gambrel became unnecessary in most American households. Some tools disappeared not because the trade died, but because a single machine made a dozen hand tools redundant all at once. The barrel bung starter is one of those. It looks something like a wooden mallet, but the head is offset and weighted oddly, and one face is fitted with a small brass or iron nub in the center. It was used to tap wooden barrel bungs, the stoppers that seal the barrel, without damaging the stave around them or driving the bung in crooked. Strike the bung off-center, and it splits the wood. Strike it squarely but too hard, and the bung sinks past the seat and is lost inside the barrel, ruining the seal. The bung starter gave just enough controlled force to break the seal evenly, with a satisfying hollow knock that every barkeeper, pickle merchant, and grain warehouse worker knew meant the barrel was open and ready. Pneumatic and mechanical sealing equipment, combined with the shift from wooden barrels to sealed metal and plastic containers, made this little tool invisible within a generation. And finally, return to that first strange object on the general store counter. There is a particular quiet you feel holding something that 1,000 ordinary hands held before yours. These were not ceremonial objects. They were not made to impress. They were made to solve a problem that real people had on a real Tuesday, before plastic, before electricity, before anyone thought about keeping track of such things for history's sake. The farmer with his harness skiver, the cooper with his inside calipers, the wheelwright and his spoke dog, the woman and her sad iron lifter. Each one of them held a tool that fit their hand like it had always been there, because for them, it always had been. That is what these objects carry, not just iron and wood, but the memory of a way of living that was careful, self-reliant, and deeply skilled. Those hands built this country, and these tools were in them. Like this if it took you back, and subscribe for the next forgotten tool. The workshop never really closes.